Hi, I'm Rachel Dillon.
And I'm Marcus Dillon.
And this podcast is Who's Really the Boss, where we highlight the joys
and challenges
of running a business with your spouse or family.
Our mission is to strengthen families and businesses by helping listeners avoid the mistakes we have made so they can lead
and live happily ever after. Welcome back to season 2 of Who's Really the Boss podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me back.
So since we are still in January, I believe this episode releases in January. What's one thing you intended to start in January that you either never started or have already changed your mind on?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, actually. Is there something that you know of that I meant to start and I didn't?
That'd be awesome. No, I don't have anything. I wish I did. I wish I could call you out on something. Let me think. Let me keep thinking. Maybe we'll end the episode with the thing you were supposed to do and you never did it.
That's why you never document your what you're trying to accomplish. So
usually we do document. This year we didn't. So maybe we need to document so you can't get out of this when we get to the end of the year. Yeah.
The only thing that I may have not done well with yet, it has to do with like stress and starting the new year. So I was hoping to go into this year kind of a little more calm, collected, some uncertainty with different things that are going on, some different hurdles with non-DBA, non-things have kind of have not allowed for that. And it may just be as stupid as like an email address that I had no idea that I owned and a whole inbox that I have to go through sometime. But I just feel like there's like this cloud of uncertainty still following me around from January 1st. And I need to go kick that cloud. I need to go outrun it or address why it's still following me. And I just haven't sat down and done what I needed to address.
Okay. Did you ask me? I think you asked me. Was there one you needed to start that you didn't?
Are you just going to edit all that and
Here we
call me out on it? Right. Yeah.
Here we go. There were 2 suggestions made to help with this a little bit.
Did I make a suggestion? Yeah.
No,
so there you go. Did I commit? Did I listen? Did I hear?
No, you did not. You didn't commit. You didn't listen. But you just asked me, were there ones I should have? So
okay.
I'm going to put them out for the world to hold you accountable to. Either to help with a little bit of the New Year stress, schedule an appointment with a counselor.
Oh, we're not doing that.
You're supposed to be an advocate for mental health and
mental
counseling.
Health is important for everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or fasting and prayer was the other one that could help with that situation as well. And probably both of those are needed. And you could see great progress rather than spinning your wheels and wishing it was a different situation. So so there you go. So that's out there. So if you want to know what you should do, that's what I think you should do.
Yeah. So there we go. All right. What was yours?
Okay. I haven't quit, but I'm regretting my decision. And this is so bad, but flossing my teeth every day.
There's like a million dentists that are gonna like start like.
Well, and that's why it's on my mind because the dental space will be our topic of conversation today. But
so you regret flossing your teeth every day?
Flossing every day. I hate doing it. And so now I'm thinking like, okay, what if I did 5 days a week? 5 days a week is better than no days a week or better than 1 day a week. So can I just take a break 2 nights a week? So we're going to get
all these angry dentists are going to flame on and like comment about.
Well, and funny enough, because I think that my gums are receding and potentially not flossing can cause that to worsen. I've been told. So hopefully I'm saying that correctly. So it's something that I really need to do. It's not something that I should do or want to do, but it's something that's really a necessity for the results that I want. So.
Oh my gosh.
But I'm kind of thinking, is 5 days good enough?
Yeah. Well, yeah, if we haven't lost everybody already. So I think well, bring them all back. So we're a fee for service patient and don't use dental insurance. So everybody rejoin the podcast and
Here
is
we
ready
go.
to listen now. So
Here we go. So talking about the dental space, we wanted to cover, should you accept the DSO offer as a dental practice owner? So this has become very prevalent in our area, but I think nationwide, that dentists are being offered high multiples of their practice to purchase their practice or a portion of their practice by these larger dental service organizations. So really wanted to talk through one, maybe people don't know what a DSO is or what it exactly stands for. So let's start there. What is a DSO?
yeah, a dental service organization is just it's a group that provides services to dentists in their offices and their patients, and kind of streamline some of the back offices, insurance reimbursement. There's just a whole host of different services that are provided by the organization that is larger. It has a different team, and because of the results of scale with working with different offices and having a bigger top line revenue, it can do those services at a different cost structure than an individual office. And so DSOs are in the dental space. DPO, dental partnership, it's the same thing. It's a little bit different of a structure. They're also widely known in different professional service industries like the vet space. They're ultimately, it's everywhere now because of private equity and different options that exist.
So who are these larger organizations approaching?
Yeah, so I mean, they love everybody as long as you're a doctor.
That's exactly what it seems like. Like no one's off the table. Everybody's a good candidate potentially.
Yeah, they want you if you're in business 30 years and you don't have an associate that you can kind of, transition the practice to. They want to talk to you. If you have a great practice with a ton of associates and a ton of minority partners, they want to talk to you. If you're an associate that has no practice, they want to talk to you, and so I think they don't have many people that aren't an ICP, like an ideal client profile. So that's probably a good question for some of our DSO friends, like who is not a good fit. Probably even like an unsuccessful business, like somebody that's just burned out and not profitable, they would still probably buy for pennies on the dollar. But it's just they see an opportunity there and they're going to take advantage.
What is their promise, or besides just a high multiplier, a high valuation of the person's practice, what are their promises that are leading people to join that organization or sell to that organization?
Yeah, I think the overall promise is the promise of a better life. And that's a very general promise, right? So I think in the back of your mind, if you own a business, a dental office, and you're the sole owner, the sole production in the office, maybe from a doctor standpoint, in the back of your mind, you've always got a succession question. Like, what does it look like to exit the business? Maybe you've read, books where it says begin with the end in mind, and you're just trying to go down that path of I started this business, I didn't have a good way to solve for how I get out of it, and what does it look like for when I'm ready to exit. So a lot of times those are the people that they speak to a lot of times to say, hey, here's the path to exit the ownership of your practice. Here is that path, whether you're ready to do that in 2 to 5 years or 10 to 15. Like, we can kind of structure some different deals to make it make sense for you. And I think those are a lot of times the conversations that happen because there's just this angst in that doctor that they don't have that solved for. And most entrepreneurial doctors want that solved, want all problems solved, and that's how they do it. So that's usually the pain point that most people come to us with.
So because lots of people are receiving offers from these larger organizations, what are considerations before signing anything? What are things that they should be considering before they sign a letter of intent? Definitely before they sign like a sell agreement or a purchase agreement. Yeah. What are the considerations that they should all look out for?
So there's so many. So I can't, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be released before this one, but how to improve the value of your business, that applies in these situations. So have you evaluated your team, your patient list, your pricing? All of that goes into the offer that you get. So I think just running a really good business and not kind of putting your head in the sand and hoping that it's going to be somebody else's problem. Nobody wants to buy a problem. And so I think that is, as an owner, if you don't address the problem, don't run a really good business, a really good office, then you're going to get less of a purchase price or less of a deal, because there's stuff to clean up. There's stuff to go fix, and no one wants to buy a fixer-upper. So they will buy a fixer-upper, but they're not going to do it for your price. So that's the thing. And then once you've kind of got to the point where mentally you're ready for that conversation and you haven't identified any other alternatives, then you need proper representation. So you need to know what the market looks like. And it would just be no different than you sticking a for sale sign in the front yard of your house. Like, if you have no idea what your house is worth, why would you ever do that? And you have to kind of go out to people who know the value of your practice or of your business and say, okay, it's worth this today. How can we get it to be worth more? And I think those are the people you surround yourself as you're kind of leading up to having that conversation. And it kind of goes back to that team of advisors. So definitely an attorney, an accountant, or a fractional executive team, a CFO, controller, whatever you want to call it, a CPA. And then also, there's a place for, transition specialists, like a broker or somebody that really knows the market and can shop your office, your deal. Just like you would pay a realtor to get you top dollar for your house, so many people don't want to pay somebody to help them sell their business, which is kind of foolish, because would you do that same thing for your house, or would you actually pay a realtor a commission? So I think that's something to consider. So before you ever sign anything, before you're approached, like, don't sign an LOI without visiting with an attorney that specializes in these type of deals, that's seen them before. And then also talk to maybe a broker and engage them.
Yeah. And I think, and this is coming from experience, recent experience that we've had, there are a few questions that you probably want to get answered, again, before you're signing anything, like, how much cash do you actually walk away with? What are the tax implications of that, immediately within that purchase year? How is the purchase being funded? How much are you required to produce as a partner or a worker in the business once the purchase is done? Do you want to expand on any of those?
Yeah, all are relevant points. You hit on so many of them. Where you first start is it a good deal or not? And there are things that the business development people of DSOs hit on, and they hit on them at the wrong times, I think. So we were just involved in one that did not end in an agreement, but they kept on bringing up like the way that it was structured and the tax benefits of this structure and why they were using debt in this way. And that's great, but ultimately it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal for the doctor. They owned the building that they're in, and the rent on the other side of the transaction was minimal. Like, it was a slap in the face to the office itself, like the physical real estate. And so all of that to say, like, first, weigh the considerations on the deal itself. Every deal is a little bit different. We know that in this industry that so many people talk back and forth and share their experience. Like, I was happy with this. And so then their friend starts looking at the same, but every person's different. Every deal is different. So I think that's something to consider. How much cash you walk away with, if that's your goal, if you're wanting to take some cash off the table, right? So every deal will likely have that. In these DSOs and these DPOs, you'll also kind of exchange part of your proceeds for ownership in the larger business. And that's kind of usual now, because it is enticing for that owner, that seller, because it gives them a way to participate in the growth of the business beyond, like, at the day they sell it. So they usually still own, let's say, 40% of the practice, but that 60% they've sold, they get a portion of cash, they get a portion of stock in the new business or in the parent company. And so with that, just do your diligence. Like, you're exchanging cash proceeds for stock. How would you go do your diligence on buying stock on the stock market? Like, you got to look at the financials. You got to kind of see their performance. What is the upside in owning that business? But that usually is enticing because the DSO promises that they can grow the practice beyond what the doctor could, and they can use their leverage to get better purchasing power, whether that's insurance reimbursements or supplies, whatever that is. They can also use their network to attract associates to come in under that doctor where that doctor couldn't do it in the previous ownership phase. And so those are a lot of the promises that, we talked about earlier that a DSO could deliver on, or tries to deliver on. But ultimately, the big financial reward in that is whatever cash you exchange for that stock goes up in value from that time on. And so the last portion of the proceeds is obviously you still have a ownership in your practice, typically until you fully retire. And then you would sell a portion or all back to the office or some to the associate that is now practicing in that location. And that's kind of the exit of the doctor typically. So what happens along the way, usually these DSOs, DPOs are funded by either bank or private equity injection. So that's the capital in these transactions. These DSOs, DPOs, like, they don't have a ton of like cash. They have leverage. They have loans essentially. And so every DSO, every DPO that we've seen now, there may be somebody special out there that we haven't seen yet, but they do have funding from either private equity or some type of bank, private bank or investment bank, whatever. You have to be okay with that. Like, there's risk involved with that. And a lot of times they make that selling doctor personally guarantee a portion of the loan in certain situations. Now, we've seen things where that was not the case, but it does come up occasionally. And for somebody that is risk averse, debt averse, that could be a deal breaker. So usually that'll be identified in the early stages of an agreement, of an LOI, that it would be funded with debt. We typically shy away from the doctor trying to personally guarantee in most situations, just because they're not 100% shareholder anymore. And if they wanted to refinance their practice and take some cash out of the business, they could do that on their own and be okay with it. So it just has to be evaluated, essentially.
Yeah. And I think one big thing to remember, if the enticing part is that you have the ability to work less while still earning income, is to make sure that you really read the fine print on your production goals or the amount of production that they're requiring of you. If you're, joining this organization or selling part of your practice to this organization just with the intent that you're not going to be at the same level of production you have been in the past, you need to make sure that that's outlined in that agreement so that you have the ability to do that and don't get stuck producing as much or more in order to benefit from the growth of the practice.
And typically unless you push back, all those production agreements are going to be for more than you were producing, because until they find you an associate, which at that point, your percentage pay essentially for what you're doing in the business on a production standpoint would go down because your production would go down. And then read the fine print in those employment agreements, because you want to make sure that all of the procedures that you're credited with, that you think you should be credited with, actually go into that production number. And it's not something that you thought was included that is not included in that production number. So if they set a production number of $1.3 million and you get 30% of that, like that is your pay, like that is your compensation for working in the business. That is not being an owner in the business. That is not being a partner of a business to a certain percentage. That is employee pay. And so, or doctor percentage pay, y'all are familiar with that. So the thing that needs to be understood is, okay, if you increase that from 1.3 to 1.5 or 1.7, and you're 100% owner of that, that actually goes to the bottom line. You did all of that work. Are you going to be okay with increasing your production to 1.5, 1.7, and only getting 30% of that? And then, a portion of that will go to the bottom line, but you're only a 40% owner of that business. And so it really depends on the deal and what your goals are in that. I don't think anybody enters into this unless they're just so done with running a business that they sign on for something like that. So go into it, read every agreement. If you can't read the legal fine print, employ somebody that can read it and digest it, and then ultimately share with you in layman's terms what it means.
What are 3 things, I always love 3 things, but what are 3 things that a good DSO offer might include?
So 3 things that a good DSO offer would include. One is just, it's a clear plan. It is simple. And that's where, whether it's a DSO or any other business sale, can you repeat it back to me, what you heard and what's been legally documented? And does it do both of those agree? And typically they don't. So one, is it really simple? Do you understand where the cash is coming from? Do you understand all the players in the game? And the second thing is, what's guaranteed? So knowing what your guarantees are. And so how much cash are you walking away with? What's that stock worth that you now own? And then what is the plan for your remaining interest? Like, what is that timeline? And so typically that comes back to good communication. So what did we say? We said guarantee, simplicity, and I think it is communication. I'm going to go out easy on that one because to be clear is to be kind. And so you want to make sure that who you're doing business with from this point on can clearly communicate with you. A lot of these deals, we get into like these legal phone calls during due diligence, and there's 10 lawyers on the phone, all of them are on mute. You're just like, how much does this phone call even cost? They're all internal at the DSO, but the client is being represented by their attorney that they're paying. They're represented by us on that phone call as well, and maybe somebody else who's just another set of ears. But that's the piece. Like, go with your gut. I think most people feel comfortable. They see their friends or their colleagues go a certain route, and then they only hear the positive. Like, what people share at the society, the different events or on the golf course is only the positive of what happens. Nobody's going to share when stuff goes sideways or when it doesn't go well. You may hear about it after, like way after the fact. And then
we live in a world of highlight reels only.
Yeah.
Highlight reels and the most perfect picture that can possibly be painted, for sure.
The other thing that you have to realize is your colleagues that sold to the DSO have a financial incentive to get you on that same DSO bus. So they are paid a commission for any new, like you hate to say
MLM.
Yeah, it's not that bad, but they are paid and they are incentivized by bringing other doctors that they want to be in partnership with on the bus. Like that's also a selling feature. It's like, hey, anybody else this would be good for? So just know that that relationship with that colleague may be tainted a bit because they're like, they see you as a dollar sign. It's like, this is a commission check, buddy. So all of that to say, like, know who the players are, and just be real clear, simplicity, clear communication and guaranteed money. That's the main 3, I think.
Are there any ideal situations for accepting a DSO offer? So say it is a good offer. What are one or two ideal scenarios when it's a good time to accept
No,
a DSO
I think
offer?
we are not against DSO. Like, like that is one of the things, like we are here to support entrepreneurial doctors. And to that point, even every doctor gets to that point where they've had enough. They throw their hands up. They can't identify that associate they can't make that deal happen. And sometimes even when we evaluate a DSO thing, like a DSO offer, it is much stronger than the doctoring continuing to practice. So we have to just make sure, like, is this what you really want? If that's great, let's go do it. If not, like, this may not be the right time. So, but yeah, there are situations where it's like retirement is inevitable. Like maybe there's a health event, maybe there's somebody that just can't practice anymore. Unfortunately, in that situation, the purchase price isn't going to be as high as somebody that could continue to practice in that. Certain specialties are worth more than others. So depending on, general is still the Wild West of dentistry. You can do a lot of different things, but once you specialize, it's, the multiples on those practices are typically, good. And so we've seen different players in the game. We know everybody at this point who's been around the block and bought practices, and we know who's good and who's bad. And we've heard good and bad stories from both on the other side of things. So it's just, you have to do all of your due diligence. You have to make sure that you go into that situation fully educated, never rush a deal. We've seen DSOs try to rush a deal with a 45, 60-day close. You started this practice and you owe it to yourself to take time to sell it. And so usually that's what we'll see. And every DSO will want you 60 days after the first offer. Like, I don't think there's anything changing that fast where they won't honor it. Something may happen in due diligence where it was not what they thought they were getting into, and that may kill a deal, but not time typically. So
yeah,
a lot of things.
We really thought this conversation was important because we do serve a lot of dental, orthodontic, and veterinary business owners. And so we just want to make sure that they are educated and informed, because if it hasn't happened already, the time will come when a larger organization presents them an offer. And so just want to make sure that they feel educated and supported, that other people understand that there are a lot of considerations when accepting an offer, and not to be blinded or jaded by just that multiplier that might be presented first. That's always going to be the promise of money and time are going to be presented first, and we can talk about the details later. So make sure that you're asking about those details as soon as possible.
Yeah, and I think every deal, like I said, there's a lot that we like in the different DPO and DSO models. How much are they going to change is one thing to ask yourself. Are they going to leave you alone? Are they going to, the patients aren't even going to know a transaction happened. There's not going to be any, is it just truly support is what we would want to see for the owner. Are you able to take a 6 to 7 or 8x multiple up to a 12x multiple because you're now part of this bigger organization that has gone through a few different private equity events like recaps or sales, and your practice is worth that much more, which means your investment is worth more. So those are things to consider. What is the timeline on that next private equity event? If it is a private equity backed DSO or DPO, and if you're invested enough to stick around, what are you okay with your life looking like? So if you've already scaled back quite a bit and you're only practicing 3 days a week or something that's really manageable in your eyes, but now you have a certain quota to hit as far as production is concerned, and that's that's a large part of your annual compensation. What does that look like? And are you willing to give up that time freedom for those dollars, for a practice you don't own 100% of? So a lot of considerations. And obviously we've mentioned the advisors. You need to talk to your family, your spouse. Like, if you're going to retire and be at home 5 days a week, is your spouse okay with that? Like, so a lot of things to consider going into these, and do yourself the service and not rush through any of those steps when selling your business.
I think this has been a great conversation. I think it'll be very helpful for a lot of practice owners to hear, and even other people who are helping to advise those practice owners what to look out for. Yeah. So thanks for sharing.
Hopefully everybody's got a dentist. Maybe your dentist is in that situation and you share it, too. So, yeah.
Don't tell my dentist that I am considering not flossing every day.
Well, I think that right now there's a meme going around where it's like 9 out of every 10 dentists recommend flossing once a day. So you just need to find that one dentist that doesn't recommend flossing once a day. Maybe he recommends twice a day. I don't know. So
that's probably it. That's probably exactly it.
But that guy's onto something, it's like, but
probably
good
has
conversation.
Stock in floss.
He's the denture guy, and he just wants all your teeth to fall out. So that's his play.
All right. Well, this has been a good conversation. We'll see you on the next.
All right.
Thanks for hanging with us to the end of another episode. If you have thoughts, comments, or feedback you would like to share, please leave us a comment or review on your favorite podcast listening platform. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Join us again next week for another great conversation.